Okay, good morning, ladies and gents. Good morning, Prof Gawlik from the Cracow University of Economics in Poland, in Cracow, the beautiful town of Cracow. Prof Gawlik is he's teaching international economics and geopolitics at the university. Well, today we're going to talk, the general question that we would like to talk about is business development potential in Africa from a geopolitical perspective. But we're going to break it down, or Prof Gawlik indicate to me he would like to discuss it in the format of a structure of 3 short questions. The first one, Prof Gawlik, refer to geopolitical obstacles to the development of African business. Well, the floor or the screen is yours. Welcome, and thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Professor Prinsloo and Northwest University Business School for this invitation. Just as an introduction, I would like to explain what geopolitics is. And geopolitics, my dear friends, is a science on raising your country's possibilities to have an impact on the international scene. It's based on the country's history, geography, politics, and economics. So economics is a part of geopolitics, and geopolitics actually is a strong prerequisite for business development. So as all of you know, Africa is the world's 2nd continent and 2nd population after Asia, with 55 sovereign states and a lot of troubled history, former division between 7 European superpowers. And the effects we also know, which is troubled history, random borders, mass exploitation of natural resources, and religious and cultural conquests. And my thesis in this interview is that geopolitical stability is the absolute prerequisite, but also insufficient prerequisite for business development, expansion, and growth all over Africa. And during this interview, we agreed with Professor Prinsloo that I will refer to a commonly shared division of Africa into Northwest, Central, East, and South regions. This is a division by the African Union, but it's also accepted by the United Nations Conference for Trade and Development. It's also accepted by the OECD. And not to forget the 6th region, which is the African diaspora all over the world. So this will be the division. But the problem with this division is that it is strongly misleading, because in Africa, nothing is simple and nothing is as straight as the borders between countries. And let me prove you that. Just to remind you, what is the thesis of my speech here is that, again, geopolitical stability is the absolute but insufficient prerequisite for business development in Africa.
The second question, or the second category we're going to talk about, is potential geopolitical obstacles of Africa in general.
Yes, and for the development of African business. So first of all, Africa became the new zone of clash of global superpowers. And I'm talking here about China, US, Russia, but also EU and particularly European member states, and India and Turkey. And that means that Africa became the scene of competition of big global players, which would be really very nice, because competition means also business development. But in this case, actually, I put it into geopolitical obstacles, because those big global players often outsource their conflict zones. And let me give you some examples. Best example of how Africa is complicated in geopolitical terms, and therefore in economic stability, potential for economic stability, is Libya, where you have now a recent clash between the Government of National Accord and the Libyan National Army, the first one backed by Turkey, and the second one backed by Russia. But at the same time, US and UN backs the same Government of National Accord as Turkey. But at the same time, France, which is a member of the European Union, rather supports, together with Iran, with Egypt, Saudi Arabia, even the Islamic state of Iraq and Levant and United Arab Emirates, the other side, supported by Russia, which is the Libyan National Army. So it's all mixed up. It changes quickly, and it's usually not based on traditional borderlines in Africa. Another example, in Central African Republic, you have a conflict of Russia and the EU countries, and Russia sent there the renowned Wagner group, which is their group of mercenaries for dirty work. In West Sahara and Morocco and all over the former Sahel, the former French colonies, you have Russia competing with France and Russia becoming the main anti-Islamic extremist fighter in Africa. So competition here in this West Sahara and Morocco geopolitical trouble thing between Russia and France actually becomes quite strong. Both the parties are sending military equipment. France is also sending soldiers. Again, I said USA. Now US National Guard joins for the first time joint army exercises of Morocco and Tunisia. What is Russia's response to that? Well, they joined fleet exercises with Egypt at the Black Sea. So as you see, there's plenty of instability potential in Africa without even mentioning China's military presence, which is just a matter of time for me. There will be the military as well. Second geopolitical problem in Africa is the growth of Muslim extremism in the Sahel. And this is the reason for growing involvement on France in its former Africa colonies. When I say involvement, I mean political involvement, intelligence actions, economic and military involvement. And here we come to another specific for Africa element. Conflict usually spread through the borders because of tribal links, because of family links, artificially drawn border lines. Another aspect here is that the Western powers, when they think about the geopolitics, they usually strongly supporting human rights. And we have a problem with that in Africa because it seems that the lesson taught by Libya's Muammar Gaddafi tells us straight that supporting dictatorships sometimes offers us brutal but stability. After the death of Gaddafi, we had immediately the conflict from Libya spreading to Mali, where we had Tuareg rebellion and proclamation of an independent state. We had attacks on United Nations blue helmets, the biggest one in February this year in Mali again. We have even Islamist extremists spreading to Mozambique, attacking recently the city of Palma in Cabo Delgado province. We have dry clashes in Ethiopia. We have the Niger civilian killings. We have a recent assassination of President of Chad Republic, Idris Deby, killed by rebels in April, 19th of April. We have Al-Shabaab attacks in Somalia. We have Boko Haram terror in Nigeria. So all of this does not provide space for development of economy. Another geopolitical obstacle of Africa for potential development of business in Africa is economic shortages in sensitive business sectors. Best example, Africa's Denel military group, which used to be renowned all over the world, and now it's at the verge of bankruptcy because of mismanagement and financial extravaganza, if not straight corruption. Another obstacle from the Western perspective, but not anymore from Chinese, I believe, is that Africa is becoming the fastest developing target for illicit financial flows. And this is this information, I took it from the United Nations Conference for Trade and Development, Economic Development Reform report in Africa in 2020. So a recent thing, Africa starts being the money laundering target. Last but not least, the presence of natural resources, which I will discuss later on, make us from the Western world look at Africa as one big resource mine, which can be developmental, but can be also very limiting and corruption and generating corruption. So to sum up, the weak foundations for making business in Africa and development of African business are political instability, corruption, weak democratic institutions. Also, in some countries, the rush of public debt, the relation between public debt and GDP, which grew in Angola, fast developing Angola. But last year, it grew to 120% of the GDP, which is huge, which is enormous. Just to tell you that the acceptable level of public debt relation to GDP in Eurozone countries is up to 60%. And also, Africa has quite a low level of accumulation of wealth. You just didn't have that much time as the rest of the world, especially the Western world and China, to accumulate wealth. So you have to rely on foreign investments. And we have to mention COVID-19, which from my perspective isn't really creating new problems, but it's showing and strengthening, so visualizing and strengthening the weaknesses of African socio-economic development in such fields of economics, politics, healthcare, and others.
Let's conclude this short interview with the potential economic strengths of Africa. I think you touched on to that. I'm interested to hear how you see this playing out.
Yeah, so I would divide economic strengths of Africa into purely economic and geopolitical. And geopolitical strengths of Africa start with that. What is this? Well, this is a map of rare earth metals, so minerals necessary for every single electronic IT production in the world. And when I mean IT production, I'm not talking about computers only. I'm talking about everything we produce. To produce a wooden chair today on a mass scale, you need production equipment and machinery, and these are steered by microchips. So this is your huge potential of wealth and also geopolitical power, because and now you see how limiting is this division of Africa into 5 zones, because those rare earth metals are deposited all over the continent. So this is number one, and I would say this is the 21st century geopolitical strength of Africa. You are best endowed in the world in natural resources crucial for the development of IT, which is rare earth elements. Second, you still have natural resources of the past, so many oil in Angola, Nigeria, Libya, Egypt, and other countries of Africa. You have also, you become the field of huge competition between global business companies. And global business companies from China, US, European Union, they usually bring innovations. So, and also they give you geopolitical power. But there's one very important element here. Your leaders have to understand that they are not begging for charity, but that they have quite serious arguments in their heads. So maturity in negotiations is crucial to use the natural resource potential of Africa. Second, very important from the European perspective, and especially this counts for Northern African countries, immigration control to the EU. We're really talking a lot about human rights, but at the same time, we are paying Northern African countries to stop the illegal immigrants on their side before they cross the sea and they come to the EU. And best example of this is a very recent beef between Morocco and Spain, when Morocco just for a few hours let 6,000 immigrants pass through their border to the Spanish enclave of Ceuta in northern Africa. And one last thing is that Africa becomes a place for location of foreign military bases. About purely economic strengths of Africa, rapid expansion of the internet. You see, in a situation of lack of infrastructure, suddenly internet becomes the driving force for Africa's development. Second is entrepreneurship. I have never seen that much entrepreneurship as in African shanty towns, in Alexandria, in Johannesburg. There's so much entrepreneurship and business potential in there. It just needs a little bit of investment, a little bit of funding, and economic freedom. Three, solid education. Several African countries have really good universities. I would start with South Africa, adding Nigeria, adding Kenya, also more and more Angola. They promote solid education, business, doctors, engineers, everything that constitutes a modern civil society. Four, international trade. Africa is a very important trading partner for China, European Union, and the United States. Fifth element, foreign direct investment. Remember, as much as you people in Africa and African countries need international investments as much big investors, so FDI providers, I mean countries such as European countries, US, China, need you as a place to invest. We do not invest our money abroad because we just like the nature there. We do it because our markets are over-invested, oversaturated with investments. So that's a huge potential for Africa. An example here can be seen in post-communist countries of Central and Eastern Europe, which actually went through this path since 1989 and the abolition of communism. And last element, the strength of African diaspora in the world in terms of promoting Africa as a place for investment, in terms of supporting Africa financially and families on a private level, but also on an organizational level, and also as an amazing negotiation partner or intermediary between African leaders and leaders from the rest of the world. So, to sum up, Africa has got a lot of geopolitical potential for business development, even more economic potential for business development. The prerequisite is smart leaders, mature leaders, geopolitical stability, and as little corruption as possible. And the rest will come. Thank you very much, Professor Prinsloo.
Thanks, Prof Gawlik. That was nice. I thought of how am I going to summarize all you've said just now? And I think you concluded it all in that last sentence by referring to those 4 pointers that we need. Nice to hear that Africa is, it seems like Africa again is in a scramble for not investment, not ownership, but investment and cooperation between Africa and the rest of the world. So I'm glad also to hear that you mentioned the investment has to come to Africa if we can comply with those 4 pointers that you mentioned. But Prof Gawlik, thank you very, very much. It's appreciated. I thank you from the Northwest University Business School for participating in our Bonn series of expert lectures. And thank you very much. I'm sure we will talk soon again, maybe something else. But nice to get an objective view from a European point of perspective on Africa. And thank you. We thank you from the deepest of our heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Prinsloo.